Peter in West Hampstead, good afternoon.
Hi. Well, what would it say? I think what it would say is if you make a mistake and you put your hand up and you make a U-turn, that shows statesmanship and dignity. But what I think the answer to this is, you have a sliding scale. They forever having these guillotines which drop at a certain level. If somebody earns more than, what did you say it was, 11,500?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, under that is 350. If you earn up to, 15,000, it drops to 300. If you earn between 15 and 20,000, it drops to the next level down, and so on. And then you don't get the ridiculous situation that you get with housing benefit, unless rules have changed since I was involved, whereby you have a precipice. You have a savings of so much, and bang, the whole thing switches off, which is catastrophic.
Could you see Margaret Thatcher doing a U-turn like this?
If she reckoned that she was definitely wrong, I don't think she had the wisdom to actually to admit it or to actually even see it. But this is a misjudgment, I think, because it's not a sliding scale. If it was a sliding scale, then I don't think there would be any call for a U-turn. It would be fair. But it's not fair. You earn 11,500 one week. Next week, your income goes up, and then bang, the whole lot goes.
So it's been ill thought through, Peter.
It's been not thought through.
Yeah, it's been ill thought through in the first place when they introduced it. Do you think, Peter, to be blunt about it, do you think that the fact that Sir Keir Starmer's net favourability rating has sunk to -46 has got anything to do with this?
I think he's absolutely terrified of reform. I think reform is
Who's running the country, Peter? Who's running the country here? Nigel Farage?
It does look a bit like that. But I think this bubble could burst. We've seen this before. Do you remember who was that guy who was running the Liberal Democrats? And he said after an election, go back to your constituencies and prepare,
yes, that's right.
Prepare for government.
That's right. Absolutely.
It could blow up. People see the local elections to some extent and by-elections as a chance where they can vote for whatever they want because it's not actually going to change much nationally.
Shaun in Frome, good afternoon.
Hi, Ali. How are you?
Very well, sir. What would you like to say?
Well, what's going on at Millbank? I'm a bit confused. Whoever's running Labour's strategy needs a good talking to be perfectly frank. First of all, they introduced these policies which are patently not going to be popular with the public. And then they go and, I think strategically, were they to get rid of the policy with regard to winter fuel allowance, it would help Starmer. But fiddling around with bans, and some people get it, some people don't, that ain't going to cut through with the public. It needs to be reversed completely and start from scratch.
Shaun, given the fact that they have expended so much political capital over this by digging their heels in, do you think that any reversal of any kind, be it a complete scrapping of the policy or indeed trying to change the threshold or trying to taper it in some way so that there's not a hard cut-off point at 11,500 quid anymore, do you think anyone's going to give this government a blind bit of credit for doing it?
I think they would. I think what Starmer needs to do is hold his hand up, say, I've been around the country, I was out campaigning, I've heard on the doorstep what you think, I've listened, and I'm taking action. Over the last week, you were talking about the immigration policy. That's another one where I'm thinking to myself, this is nuts, because they're talking, Farage is talking about illegal immigration. Yeah. And Starmer is talking about legal immigration.
No, but Farage is talking about both. Farage is talking about both, to be fair.
Well, yeah, but the motive issue is him standing at Dover.
That is true. I know
coming
that.
Across the channel. Yeah. And so you can faff around with legal immigration as much as you want. You can take that right down to 240,000. That's not going to stop Farage from standing on the cliffs of Dover saying they're still coming over. So, what he's done, unfortunately, as I think you were alluding to, he's gone and parked his tanks on Farage's lawn, which is exactly what
Farage is the puppet master. Farage is basically calling all the tunes at the moment. But to be fair, Shaun, to be fair to Starmer, and I will give him this credit, I've been talking about immigration for the last 25 years and no one's taken it seriously. And I kept saying that you're going to see a move towards the right. You don't have to be that clever to work it out. It's all happening all over Europe. Listen to the people. Everyone has ignored the wishes of the majority of the British populace on this issue. Starmer now, if he actually brings in some of these policies and they are effective, I actually think that fair play. Fair play. You've come to it late. You've got no principles. You've chucked your principles, whatever they were, out the window. Fair enough. You're a pragmatist. I can get behind you because at least you're listening on this particular issue. But if that happens, if that happens all the time, Shaun, then where do we go? I mean, you can't trust the government on anything then.
Well, I agree with all of that. I think that's quite right. And I'm not saying that he ought not to be tackling illegal immigration. Yeah. But the illegal immigration is the thing that's winning Farage all these days.
Okay, fine. I would slightly disagree. I think it's both. But on this particular point, if he does, and we don't know yet because it's being reported on the front pages that this is being put under serious consideration, the winter fuel cut policy, if it is changed in some way, what message do you think that sends out? A good one or a bad one?
Well, I think if it's done correctly, and I hold by what I was saying at the start, that if he scraps it and says we've listened, we've made a mistake, and we're going to start and have a look at this again, because I think most people would think what you were saying, that millionaires and billionaires ought not to be getting a winter fuel allowance. That's ridiculous, but. He needs to sit down and work out how to. Now, the best way, on my view, to do it at the moment, we say we've made a mistake with the whole thing. We're scrapping it. We've listened. We're starting from scratch, and that then I think would win him credit with the.
Okay, what about the imposition of employers' national insurance? What about that one? If we're going down a road of cat-handed policies that have been introduced, it doesn't stop there, does it?
Well, there's quite a few, isn't there? I'm not so averse to that one because from a political perspective, we're not. He keeps talking about the working man, doesn't he? Yeah. That's one of his catchphrases. That's not hitting. The majority of Labour voters.
That is a very good point, because the reason why this winter fuel thing is being looked at, as I understand it, is because it came up in the doorsteps in the by-election recently, but also in the local elections all over the place, and that's why. Shaun, do you think that there's a trust issue here? Because these things, neither the employers NI nor the winter fuel payment thing was mentioned in the manifesto, which is why it got up people's noses.
No, I think there is an element of that. I think what we've lost in British politics is you played Margaret Thatcher just now in terms of the ladies not for turn. I'm not a great Margaret Thatcher fan, but she was a conviction politician, wasn't she? She was. She believed in her policies and she wasn't listening. I mean, it's an old cliche, but we've got all these focus groups and all these people telling them which way they should sway.
Yeah, but this is the thing. Are you to quote Tony Benn? Are you a signpost or are you a weathercock? I mean, this Prime Minister, fair play on immigration, I'll give him that. But if you're going to do this on every issue, I mean, you're not a signpost, you just move with the wind. Shaun, thank you. Yeah. Shaun, a new caller in Essex. Welcome to you, Shaun. Good afternoon.
Hello there. Good afternoon.
What would you like to say?
This is quite simplifying everything. I do appreciate it might not work in every case. But the government last winter were telling everybody apply for tax credits if your pension's too low.
That's right.
And you'll get the winter fuel benefit.
Yeah.
My thought on that is, why would you not just make the pension tax credit limit the minimum pension, add the fuel amount to it, add the fuel payment amount to it, and then that's the base level for pensions. You haven't then got you haven't got to spend thousands and thousands on means testing people and stuff like that, and it would just become the base pension is included for the people on lower pensions already, end of, and that's it. It stops. No more winter fuel payments after that because it's included for the lower benefit.
Well, it's a very attractive proposition that you've put forward, Shaun. There will always be people on the wrong side of that line who will say that it's unfair that their benefits have been cut if there's no sliding scale.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take that back, but I just
no. I think your suggestion's an interesting one. I'm not trying to say that it's not an appropriate thing. I'm just saying that there will always be people who feel that wherever the line is drawn, you're drawing it at the minimum income level or whatever it is. Yeah. People will feel they're on the wrong side of that line.
Yeah, but when it's variable at the moment on obviously bottom pensions.
I
don't know what the rates are, but just having a base bottom pension.
I get the point.
Add in a fuel. Just makes more sense to me.
Sure. Let me.
You can't then moan about it because people were missing out by £1 or £2.
I get it. Sure. Let me ask you this: what does it say to you as a voter when you hear this? How do you feel about it? Do you think that it's showing that the government has listened, or that the government is actually going weak at the knees on this?
I'd like to say they've listened, but I don't know. It's possibly a bit of panicking now.
But it may be panic, but sometimes if governments do listen, shouldn't we give them some credit for it, Shaun? I mean, they can't win, can they?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And just cutting my parents retired, and they had no need for winter fuel power. It went towards Christmas presents.
Well,
there is no need for them to receive it.
Well, it's an interesting point. When the country is cash strapped, when the government's cash strapped, you've got to look at things, and not every pensioner out there necessarily needs the £300. No. And I think there's a discussion to be had.
I appreciate that.
Some do, but not everyone does, and they should have thought about it in a slightly different way before introducing the policy. Shaun, thank you. John in Kilcardy in Scotland. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon.
What would you like to say, sir?
Well, I was listening to your programme, and I was fascinated by this thing over the winter fuel allowance, which I personally thought was a decent policy and had to come in, not perhaps a popular one, but it's proved to be so unpopular that no matter what argument they put forward, they're not going to win it. So there is well to think again on
John,
that one.
why do you think that they misread that so badly? Why was that? Was it because it wasn't in their manifesto, or was it because it was just going to be always very unpopular anyway with a section of the electorate that actually bothers to get off their backsides and go and vote?
I don't really have an answer to that. I mean, my point of view, I suppose, is that from the days of Osborne and Cameron, we've been married to austerity, and austerity is such a damaging policy, but Labour seem to be attracted to some aspects of it and think that the tough choices mean taking money from poor people to pay for bills which they haven't personally accrued, and I mean nationally. And I mean, to work for 50 years and get a miserable 12,000 pension is just quite medieval, I think, in comparison to other countries. We're poor.
John, what do you think it says about the government if they do U-turn? Do you think it's a positive thing, or do you think it shows that they are going to be buffeted by events and effectively pushed around and slapped around by their backbenchers now? Is that what the government is?
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, I'm a staunch supporter of Starmer and the Labour Party. I think if he changes his mind on this, then he's simply, you could say, listening to people, but I would simply say it's just an argument they are not going to win. And so, therefore, perhaps there's very good reasons for that. If you're not going to win it, don't fight it. Don't dig the hole deeper.
Well, you know, it's a very interesting point, John, and thank you for your call. All I would say is that if you're not going to win that one, which other ones are you not going to win? You're not going to win welfare reform? Then don't bother. You're not going to win austerity? Then don't bother with a spending review where every department's coming in line by line having to cut costs. Don't bother with that either. Don't bother with just ring-fencing the NHS and the Defence Department. Ring fence everything. Why don't you bring back the overseas aid budget? I mean, you've got to make some choices. To govern is to choose here. And if they choose to renege on this one or reverse tack, you could say it's a wonderful thing they're listening. Other people would say that they're going soft, and that doesn't bode well for the future.
What I think it shows is that this government, under Starmer, have got no political nous whatsoever.
You're probably not wrong there. Why do you say it, David?
Because so many things they're doing, they're having second thoughts about. Or the desired effect that brought them about in the first place is going to be the wrong effect.
Do you think, David, that they're not road testing these things sufficiently and stress testing them before they announce them to the public?
I've no idea. I just think they've got no political nous. And I would not vote for any particular party at the moment anyway, because I want the best of the best in government. And they don't exist in one party.
Well, it looks like he's not going to turn you around, David. I mean, do you think that there is something to be said for politicians who actually put their hands up and fess up and say, look, we tried to do something, we've listened, it hasn't worked, we are changing tack? I mean, that shows a certain maturity, doesn't it?
Not for me. They should know that. They should know the answer before they become a politician.
Do you think it's a lack of experience?
It's a lack of everything. Political nous.
Well, political nous. What would your advice to Starmer be, David, apart from the fact you're not going to vote for him? How is he going to get your vote? if anything could
I'll
happen.
never get my vote. I'll never get my vote unless he changes tack.
In what way?
Completely becomes more of a Labour politician. Old school Labour.
Well, it's interesting because
he wants to be something to everybody, doesn't he? It doesn't work.
Well, at the moment, it looks like Nigel Farage is calling the tune, and Keir Starmer is the puppet following it. Because
Nigel Farage is just an opposition leader. He will never be in government, and when he is, he'll make balls of it, like all of us.
Well, at the moment, given where the polls are, 28% to Reform and Labour trailing them, I wouldn't be so sure, David, but we shall see what happens. Thank you for your call. Nick in Holland Park, good afternoon.
Oh, hi, Ali. Yes, Keir Starmer is listening to the opinion polls. Obviously not to the public. But my real point is, I think it tells us more about the voting public than it does about the government.
Oh, interesting.
And that is that in the main they are financially illiterate morons. And sorry to borrow Vanessa Phelps' phrase, that's you, lovely LBC listeners, a lot of you.
Bit harsh, isn't it?
Let me join very few dots together from your previous hour's conversation, which was how terrible they're putting our taxes up by reducing allowances on ISAs, or what did you say, keep your grubby hands off our money. But exactly the same people want money to be given to pensioners who don't need the money. And this is the story of the way the public, I think it's mostly the public, but with the collusion of the government, have been addicted to social spending for decades now, and to the point where anything you want to take away, it doesn't matter what it is, or reduce slightly, there's scores of complaints.
It's an interesting point.
And yet people don't want to pay more tax. I mean, it's just, I can understand from a Labour point of view, even though they're slippery eels, I mean, they're worse than the lowest, you can almost feel sorry for them, thinking, what can we do?
Well, Nick, the counter-argument would be given that if you can grow the size of the economy, which is notoriously hard to do, then everyone's happy because you've got a bigger pie to share around.
Well, that's never going to happen because you can only grow an economy by reducing taxes.
Steady on, Nick, steady on. 0.7% growth in the first quarter. We're the fastest in the G7, don't you know?
Oh, come on, you're joking.
I am joking. I am joking, but
as a dead cat bounce. Yeah, absolutely. That's not going to continue, and you can't have high growth because you're not going to get more tax receipts by taxing people more. You get less tax receipts by taxing more. But this is such an alien concept to not just Labour, but New Conservative, if I call them that, and to most of the British public. They see you're labouring for decades under the delusion that if you keep putting in, spend more money. I mean,
So you think we're being illiterate here, Nick, as an electorate, basically think we can have it all when we want to. We don't want to reduce any benefits to anyone of any kind, but we don't want to pay the taxes, and when taxes go up, people squeal on that too.
Absolutely, and the only thing you can argue about here, are people just intrinsically economically illiterate, or is it because of being spoon-fed this lie by successive governments for decades? I mean, the jury's out on that.